Welcome, fellow storm riders. You are officially a rider on the hypnotic storm once again. This is Chris Thompson, and welcome to session number 43 of Brain Software with Dr. Mike Mandel. He drinks alkaline water, hates Microsoft operating systems, and has performed nearly 5,000 stage hypnosis shows. He is the Hypnoticon, the center of the hypnotic world epicenter, the original rider on the hypnotic storm. He is none other than Dr. Mike Mandel.
Yes, Chris, entering the octagon at a little higher than my normal weight that I like to be running, about 170. I'm about 184 right now, but I can still neck crank just about anybody listening to me. So we're glad to be here. We're talking about hypnosis, NLP, changing your state, learning, having a great life, all of the above. Where are we starting?
Oh, well, how about you know what we should say is we just filmed an amazing lesson as part of the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. It was the most, I think, thrilling lesson because you spilled your guts on all of the secrets of 40 years of doing stage hypnosis.
Pretty much, yes. We did a lesson. If you're in the online Hypnosis Academy, you will hit this eventually if you stay with us. And the entire lesson is just on how to use hypnosis for entertainment, whether it's in a 6,000-seat auditorium or for 3 friends at a party. You'll be able to do it.
I just think there's so many golden little nuggets in there, even for just things like being at the center of an audience and controlling the conversation or you can apply this to the stuff that you're teaching. You can apply to more than just a stage hypnosis.
For sure, yeah.
Even though it's a lesson on stage hypnosis or entertainment.
That's the intention,
hypnosis.
yeah.
It's so powerful. And it really, I can see why we saved that lesson for, at this point in the course, it's lesson 18 for those of you listening, because so many of the concepts that you've taught earlier on in the course,
they all dovetail into this.
Oh, yeah. And it would have been too much to throw this at the beginning of the course. So anyway, enough of the commercial, but...
Right. Check out our online academy and go to MikeMandelHypnosis.com.
/academy. It was a lot of fun because it really does... teach so many of the little insider secrets that I should say. We actually just filmed a little commercial too, right, to advertise the academy.
Right.
So let's spill it here for people. So we say, hey, there are no insider secrets about hypnosis.
There really aren't. This whole mythology, if you study with so-and-so, you'll get the real secrets. You'll get Milton Erickson's lost arts that nobody has discovered but him. This is absolute nonsense. It's like the lost secrets of self-defense, and there aren't any. It's just a matter of learning correct techniques and mastering them. There's only poor and inept hypnotists and trainers out there and the people who got it together.
So we wanted to start by diving a little bit deeper into some of the hypnosis, for lack of a better term, garbage that's out there.
Oh, Chris, get me going on this. We have, for those of you listening, we've talked about this day after day, and we've been watching all kinds of videos online. There is a man, I'm not going to say his name. He's a lovely person. Well, he's no longer with us, but he was a very nice man. But the stuff that is online, how he has built this reputation of being so frickin' brilliant is beyond me. I can only presume it is because the standard has been so low that when somebody comes along who can do adequate hypnosis, they seem to be a frickin' genius. I mean, Chris, I watched him do supposed Oriental hypnosis, and he's banging a gong and waving it around people's heads, and then he's making their arms lock with energy, and it's all about it's all about mechanical advantage. It's nothing whatever to do with energy. I'm just watching, going, why do people worship at this guy's freaking shrine? It's just unfortunate because we're going to be reading excerpts from a book today, which is not by him, but it's by one of his compatriots, and it just shows what typical hypnosis was in the 40s and 50s, and unfortunately still is in so many instructors' minds and techniques.
Right. And of course, we discussed this podcast ahead of time, and you shared with me some of the things that are in this book. It's horrendous. And so this is the thing. I'm looking at this book that Mike's got, and it's written, I don't know if you want to say it was written by...
No, I'm not going to say it.
Okay, so... I'm going, when was this written?
People. I just want to attack poor technique.
This book was written around
in the 40s, 1948, 49. But it was republished in the 50s.
Thing. How old was Milton Erickson in the 40s? Well, he was in his 40s because Milton Erickson was born in 1901.
Yeah, something like that.
So while all this junk was being published, it's not like people didn't understand hypnosis or the good hypnosis.
Some people did.
Some people clearly didn't and still don't, but there was excellent hypnotic skill in the world in the 1940s in the hands of Milton H. Erickson
of course, Chris,
and others.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct, of course. And that's back when Milton even said himself he was way too directive in his early days. Mm-hmm. He began to get the more permissive methodologies that so many hypnotists are unable to master because they've not been taught properly, and they're taught that it's too difficult or not necessary or irrelevant, or as one hypnosis instructor says, Milton Erickson bored people into trance.
Oh.
Actually, no. Orman McGill bored people into trance. You can see him on video admitting that's what he did with at least one induction where he has the person draw the face of a clock and he stands behind the guy with his hands on his shoulders. This is archaic stuff that deserves no time at all, and I'm only giving it time to show it needs no time. In this book, Chris, you'll notice there's a picture of a woman hypnotizing another woman, and she's standing behind her again, like McGill was when he said he bored people into trance with the induction.
Now, so if you're standing behind somebody, what's the problem with that?
Well, you can't calibrate their behavior. You can't calibrate their external analog. You can't see what's happening in their expression. You're standing behind them, for crying out loud. How much can you read from looking at the back of their head? And my answer is whoosh, nothing. So we're talking about bad technique, and the reason we're talking about this is so many people are either still stuck there in this archaic stuff from the past that is a waste of time. And when I read you some of these excerpts from this book,
try not to laugh too hard.
You'll understand why some of these people became so huge, because all they had to do was average hypnosis compared to this idiocy. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where people have brought up Milton Erickson's techniques and some of the newer stuff, but they've then complicated it and made it subject to, flashcards and thousands of DVDs, and made it so difficult that it makes them seem smarter. But in reality, the complexity makes it harder to learn, and unnecessarily so.
I think that's a really good point, Mike. There are people out there who are marketing Ericksonian hypnosis techniques as if they are complicated and you have to learn with a box of I exaggerate a little bit here, but dozens of DVDs where you'll spend an entire hour breaking down one simple little thing as if it's this complex thing.
So much filler, complications, or archaic techniques that are ridiculous, that are half digested and people are still stuck with them. So what we intend to give you in these podcasts and in our trainings is the best techniques, the best of Erickson, the best of the direct stuff. We strip it down. We cut the garbage out. The same way Bruce Lee took all the classical kung fu, stripped it down, made it simple and direct, and came up with his Jeet Kune Do as a means of just rapidly taking control of the situation. We'll do the same thing with hypnosis. You got in your hand, Chris, a rather interesting depth scale.
Right. Let's talk about this. So
well, you know my theory on hypnosis depth scales.
Yeah. Do you want me to say?
Well, they're nonsense. They're a complete waste of time. There's the Friedlander-Sarbin scale. There's the Lacron-Bordeaux scale, which I think divides people into 50 different levels of trance they can reach. There's the Davis-Husband scale, if I'm not mistaken, goes to 30 levels. And there's all these
Stanford,
who knows? Harvard scale. The point is they're all a waste of time. Now, looking at this scale...
We have... Can I say what it is?
Why don't you read it out?
So we have... Okay, so Mike found this in his hypnosis paraphernalia box or whatever. I don't know what you have wrong.
My shelf, my bookshelf.
Your shelf.
I hate the thought that people think I'm now walking around with a cardboard box full of hypnotic paraphernalia.
It just sounds
Clarify
hilarious.
that immediately.
So... He sent me a picture. You sent me a picture of this and said, we've got to talk about this on the podcast. So what I have in front of me here is this laminated, and we'll put a picture of this on the website, MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You can click on the podcast tab, look for podcast 43, and I'll include a picture, I promise.
The scale you don't need.
Aaron's Master Depth Rule.
Right.
And so it's essentially a laminated ruler, but decorated to look like a hypnotic depth scale. And, it's got their little...
Well, there's 6 levels of hypnosis, Chris.
Yeah, there's 6 levels. So there's levels 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. And each of those, so 1 and 2 together, are considered the 20% of the population who can go into a light trance. Then you have levels 3 and 4, which is 60% of the people can go into a medium trance. And then you have the final 20%, levels 5 and 6, who can go into a somnambulistic trance.
Well, at least they're not saying Samuelism,
yeah,
like McGill said online once. Now, look, when
I thought
you
he was
see
joking.
this, and he wasn't. I don't think he was joking at all. Now, if you look here and you see hallucinations, and you see negative hallucinations, level 5 and 6, this is why this is such nonsense. First of all, level 6 says plenary or comatose trance via suggestion. Comatose. Now, we're using a painted word. We're telling the person they're in a coma. Bad thing to say. Plenary trance is the Esdale state. Okay. So if you want to say levels, yeah, maybe that's at the bottom. Who knows? It really is irrelevant. When you see here, level 5, hallucinations, positive hallucinations. Now, what are positive hallucinations? Seeing something that isn't really there. And if you want to go to the level below that, wow, level 6, you can create negative hallucinations. That's amazing.
Which is not seeing stuff that is there.
But this is craziness, because the reality is they're exactly the same thing.
And I think we talked about this on a podcast before.
No, but this has come up, this master rule depth scale nonsense. If someone sees a black cat hallucinated on this desk in front of me here, he has to delete the desk underneath the cat and not see that. He has to negatively hallucinate the desk and positively hallucinate the cat. And likewise, if I wish to not see your laptop sitting there on the desk, I have to negatively hallucinate the laptop, but also positively hallucinate the desk underneath it. Yeah, they're identical. It's the same thing in every conceivable way. But once again, it's, you got the depth. You got him to level 3. Well, he went to level 4 this time. Guys, I've had level 5 stuff happen when people are wide awake. It's purely confirmation bias. And what I mean by that is, if you have a very strong belief about something, you will attempt to support that belief by your behavior all the time. If you believe that all Martians are shoplifters and are evil and beat their children, every time you see a Martian in the street, I'm saying that so we're not picking on any particular race. So here, I'll do it. I'll pick on my own. If you believe that all white people are evil and thieves and beat their children, every time you see a white person, you'll be looking for evidence to support that. And you'll be saying, there's that one of those child beaters. Look how he just looked at that kid, and the kid was frightened right away. You can see there's a history. He's going into that store. I bet he's going to shoplift. Your confirmation bias will cause you to see this stuff everywhere. It's the same. If you believe depth scales are real and true and accurate, all the things that come filtering through your perceptual filters when you're doing hypnosis will support this nonsense. You'll be looking for things that support it, and you will systematically delete anything that shows it not to be true.
In fact, weren't you just telling me about a so-called hypnosis demonstration using energy? Or does this come back to that whole Oriental hypnosis?
It's crazy stuff. I am baffled by why these things stay alive when they're so counter-science, counterintuitive, counter-sanity, and people just, wow, look at that. Oh, it's amazing. She couldn't move her fingers apart. Well, yeah, it's mechanical advantage. She's got them close to her body. There's a reason for this stuff. Anyway, I don't want to go into this in too much depth, but I think we need to go through this book, Chris, because we looked at the scale. I want to just read some of the actual excerpts of this book, which will not be named, but it is an actual book in my library, and I was highlighting it to show it to Chris. This is the kind of thing that was taught in the 40s and 50s, and this is why some people became huge in hypnosis without really being that good. Because if this is the standard, anything better than this is perceived as the best.
And again, keep in mind that Erickson was alive and masterful back in the day that this book was published.
Yes, he was.
So this shouldn't have been the standard, but unfortunately, for some people it was.
So you've got to realize that one of the things they're teaching here is something called Chevreul's pendulum. Now, Chevreul's pendulum is where you hold a pendulum with a finger ring or something suspended from it. It can just be a piece of thread or a chain. Doesn't matter what you're using to hold the ring.
A necklace, like
anything. Yeah. Anything that can dangle from your hand. You rest your elbow on the table. You imagine it swinging back and forth like you're nodding your head, and it will. You imagine it going in a circle. It will. You imagine it changing direction, and it will. This is radiesthesia or idiomotor signaling. The idea is producing micro motions that are causing it to move. There's nothing magical about it.
Micro motions in your fingers.
In your fingers,
that
your
are
wrist,
causing it to move.
To rotate, correct. Now, so this book actually recommends that you get a pendulum and you hang it from a pen or pencil, and then you hold the pencil horizontally between your fingertips and your thumbs of both hands with your elbows out from your body and your feet together and a chart below you on this complex nonsense, and imagine and focus and make it swing all these different directions through your concentration. And if you do that, standing upright with your feet together and your body relaxed, your elbows not touching your sides, it'll hang straight down, and you fixate your eyes on this point, the ring or the key or whatever it is, and you imagine it's moving for several minutes. And if you keep doing this every day, eventually, after just a few minutes a day, you will increase your concentration power and become a really good hypnotist. What's the connection? What on earth is the connection? Like, what am I missing here? I can swing, why don't I get a bolus and swing it around my head and, bring an ox down by tangling its legs and call that making me into a better hypnotist?
I mean, it just sounds like,
I meant bolero. That was the word, not bolus. Bolus is what goes through your intestines.
Why don't I take a little eyedropper and just drop little droplets of liquid?
Because if you do that for 3 minutes a day, Chris, you'll become a better hypnotist. And he actually says, explain to your subject that your pendulum has been chemically treated or endowed with magnetic properties so it reacts to sex. Like, what on earth is he thinking, Chris?
It almost sounds like mesmerism, just explain away with a bunch of crap.
He gets into that as well.
Oh, let's talk about that.
He says when you do the falling backward test, which is a well-established suggestibility test going back a long, long time, where the person tilts their head back, stares at a point above their head on the ceiling, closes their eyes, it displaces their balance. The suggestion is given that they swing back and forth until they tip back into the hypnotist's waiting hands. And he says, wow, you're an amazing hypnotic subject. Fine. Well, this book actually says, make sure you do this on an individual only. In other words, don't do it on a group of 20 people. Duh! Well, you want 19 of them fall and smash their skulls in, and you're going to catch the one? It just absolutely amazes me. This here, I'm still.
No, read the conflicting statement about mesmerism.
Oh yeah, well we'll get there.
And the mesmeric passes.
Here's one. I'll let you address this one, Chris. An expert hypnotist, an expert now, should be able to hypnotize 80% of susceptible subjects in 3 or 4 attempts. In other words, you can get so good, Krista, you can get 80% of people if you just persist and do it 3 or 4 times on them.
So let me get this right. 80% of those subjects who are already deemed susceptible,
right, only take 3 or 4
will
times.
be hypnotizable after the 3rd or 4th attempt.
If you're an expert.
If you're an expert.
Right. And everybody else can just, bite the wand because it's not going to work for you.
What did I say to you? I said, I think my dog is an expert hypnotist, and I don't have a dog.
And you don't even have one, yeah. My grandmother's an expert hypnotist, and she's dead. Now listen, sex seems to be a factor also. We have more female subjects than male subjects. What? There is no correlation between gender and hypnotizability. That's absolute nonsense.
What other supposed correlations are there?
He said, whether a person is brunette, blonde, or red-haired has no bearing on their susceptibility to hypnosis. Really? Boy, that's an eye-opener for me. I wonder if people who drive in the passing lane as opposed to the curb lane, if there's any connection there. Or people who think of Jupiter when they eat cereal. Do we need to have more studies done in these areas, Chris?
This is fascinating.
Oh, drives me mad. But listen to this. Climate and nationality. I hate to offend anyone, but this author claims the French, the Spanish, and the Italians are especially good subjects because they are hot-blooded races. Well, I think that goes in the category of what we call real science, doesn't it? Listen to this.
And you wonder why hypnosis can get a bad name from some of these people.
And this was foundational for so many years, and that's what people like the dean of hypnosis and that came out of, why they seem so freaking brilliant, because they were so much better than this. Listen to me. He said, if you know that someone doesn't smoke, even if he has not expressed himself to be against smoking, so you got somebody who does not smoke, even if they've not expressed themselves that they don't like smoking, to be on the safe side, you should not smoke yourself when you're hypnotizing them. Oh, really? What's he talking? He's talking tobacco? Is he talking crack cocaine? It's like, maybe nobody's taking that into account. Unbelievable. And this is mainstream, Chris. This is absolute mainstream at this time. People would have read this and thought, boy, that's a really good point. I got to make sure I don't smoke, and I make sure I catch those other 19 people who are falling on their heads. He actually brings back the term monoideism, which goes back to Braid, who also said hypnotism. He says, never, this is an actual quote, Never slap a subject's face to awaken him. Okay, well, that's his. Let me give you my one. Never kick a subject in the crotch to awaken him. This could have a bad effect.
There's more, though. There's more, isn't there? What if you can't awaken them?
Oh, yeah,
What do you do when you can't awaken a subject?
Oh, yeah, we'll get there.
And then we got to get to some serious stuff.
I know. Well, this is serious. This is very serious to me. I got to find this. Unfortunately, I've highlighted it so I can go through these in order. Oh, this is the one. This is brilliant. He says, if you can't wake somebody up, and again, he says the same line that the avuncular man who hypnotizes online, who is now dead, says. And believe me, an avuncular manner is no substitute for skill. Just being a nice, friendly uncle kind of guy isn't a substitute for being actually skilled. And when he says, on the count of 3, your eyes are stuck together. Stuck together.
Your eyes.
He means eyelids. Right. Well, this guy does the same thing, of course, because literacy is not really the hallmark of the average hypnotist. But he says here, what if you can't wake the person up? Now, first of all, you're inept if you can't. And secondly, I'm thinking, oh, please don't say you're going to blow on their eyelids. This is what all the old guys, blowing in their eyelids will bring them out of it. Yeah, if you got really rank breath, perhaps. But he says here, sometimes blowing sharply on the closed eyelids will awaken a subject. I thought he's actually said it. But then he goes further. He says, you may raise the lids and blow short, sharp breaths directly onto his naked eyes. Buddy, you open my eyes, hold them open, and blow on my eyes and spit in my face and put germs in my nasolacrimal duct. I'll neck crank you to next Tuesday. This is terribly stupid. But what if it
still doesn't work, Mike?
It still doesn't work, Chris. According to this book, in extreme cases, place a small fan, not a large one, place a small fan in front of the subject. This is an exact quote. Prop his eyes open and allow the cool air to hit his face. How do you prop somebody's eyes open? Do you use toothpicks? Is this Clockwork Orange where you're doing some sort of horrendous ocular distension and forcing the person to stare at violent images? This is some of the most, and believe me, Chris, in 40-odd years of full-time hypnosis, I thought, every idiotic thing imaginable. Hypnotists never, ever stop surprising me. So let's just end with 2 final points. Mesmerism. He's right into mesmerism here, as is...
No, what is mesmerism? Quick.
The whole nonsensical idea that you're moving magnetic currents through the body, and that's what was causing trance to occur. And then Braid came along and said, no, it's fixation of the eyes. And actually, it's fixation of attention and a number of other things happening. But this guy now tries to bring back mesmerism, as the avuncular one does too. And he says, you're going to pass your hands, moving these currents, passing your hands, your palms and fingers across his face and body. And then he says, but without actually touching him. Okay, so you're waving your arms over this guy's head and downward. It's always downward passes to induce trance. And he says, in most cases, the passes should only be made after the eyes are closed. Okay?
So they can't see it.
Right. So he says, first of all, you're not going to touch them. And their eyes are closed, to which I've written WTF ? Next to it. And then he says, it must be stressed that the passes have no real value. So he's told you to pass your hands in front of the person.
While their eyes are
shut, they can't see you doing it, and it has no value. That's probably the least useful chapter in an already durative book. And I'll end with this last thing. Vilk's method, Chris. Oh. If you get a very religious subject, it helps to do your induction in 1611 King James English, saying thee and thou. Now, I'm not making this up. This, I know I'm on a tirade with this, folks. This is so insane, but this is so typical for so much the older hypnotic literature, and that's why we've seen such a dearth of good hypnotic ability. And it is the people who've been rooted in the foundations of Milton Erickson and the greats and the scientists of hypnosis and human givens theory, and a lot of the modern people who moved away from this garbage are not warmly embracing this as something we should still hang on to. It's nonsense.
Okay, so having said all that...
I feel better now. You have a stroke.
Your face is a little more red than I usually see and everything. Let's talk a little bit about what is the best way really to learn hypnosis, because we started the podcast. It is not a bunch of secrets. It is not a bunch of,
a box full of DVDs, thousands of flashcards.
It's not a
memorized scripts.
It's really, so it comes down
about
to
connection.
It's about connection. It's about learning to communicate and learning a few simple strategies.
Yes, principles,
right?
principles. Principles are large chunks. They're ways of dealing with something without having to have specific rules and regulation and scripts and so on. In the martial arts, when Chris and I do the British Special Forces Jiu-Jitsu system, we do not think we have a defense for every attack that comes in. Instead, we have some principles we can apply regardless what the attack is, whether it's a kick, a punch, a grab, a strangle, whatever it is. And we can take control of the situation, dominate our opponent, and shut him down in 2 seconds. That's how it works. It's the same with good hypnotic technique. You don't need a lot of rules, a lot of regulations. You need some principles that you can apply no matter who the subject is in front of you, no matter what the issue is, and get them into trance because you are building a powerful communication loop with that person and transforming them as a result.
So let's end with, before we do the usual empowering question and closing metaphor and all that.
The usual stupid ending.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do a little role play here. You're a hypnotist, or you're a hypnotist, and I was going to say, and I'm your client, or I'm just your friend, and I come to you, and again, you're a hypnotist, and it can be either or. I want you to explain this in the terms of hypnosis is communication. So whether it be a formal client and hypnotist relationship, or it's just you talking with a friend, knowing hypnosis and taking advantage of the tools you already know. And my situation is I am really stressed out about let's say a job that I don't like, because we've talked about that before. And we're having a conversation, or I'm in your office.
Yeah, and I just happen to casually say, yes, and this is just off the top of our heads, so not talked about this. I'd say, Chris, and that sensation that you had over there about that job, and as you continue to put it aside for a moment, and think of all the wonderful times you have excelled and been able, really able to overcome those difficulties in not a self-serving way, but the kind of way that your family is built up and there's a responsibility. So your personal transformation can make their lives better as you begin to overcome this now.
Right.
Now, I'm slipping into hypnotic language in an ostensibly normal conversation, and I'm layering it on, and I'm really laying it on thick for the sake of this. I wouldn't be that obvious. I'd be much more subtle about it. But that's hypnosis. It's getting to unconscious resources. It's not making people, as Orman McGill says, hold a pen in their mouth and stare at the tip of the pen and go to it's like, where do people come up with this stuff?
You can, so in the context of an office and a formal hypnosis session, you could do a bunch of pre-talk with me and then lead me through some exercises.
But casually.
Trance. Yeah, you could casually lead me through these things and then talk to me and have me overcome this stressful situation. And if it was a buddy at a bar over a pint of beer and he's telling you about, you could
open up resources, transform his situation, open possibilities, enrich his map of the world, and make his life a lot better.
Right. You can even engage the hypnotic language by just starting to ask a question. Well, have you ever noticed that as you think about these problems you're facing at work and wonder how quickly you can pass through those problems and put them aside and just notice where else you're going in life? And as you get to those other places and you think about the people in your life who are going to help you get to the place that you're going to really start enjoying your life, you can notice that those things just don't bother you the same way that they used to. I just made that up too. I don't know.
That was pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah.
But you can shift, whether it's conversational from an everyday talk to a never-ending sentence of leading the person into this confusion,
through cascading states. Yes.
And so hypnosis is a communication skill. It's about using language properly.
And it's an amplifier of experience. So anything is stronger in hypnosis.
It's not passing magnetic waves through your subject.
No, it isn't
blowing into their eyes.
Or speaking King James English at the person because he's religious. It's like, okay, I think we've said enough about this. Let's go to our empowering question.
All right.
I want you to read the empowering question today.
Oh, sure, I'll read the empowering question.
Read it properly. Make a proper job of it.
Okay, I'll make a proper job. And if I don't, we'll edit that out, right? The question for today, empowering question for session number 43 is, what are you waiting for? Really, what are you waiting for? And how will things change once you just get on with it? What are you waiting for? Really, what are you waiting for? And how will things change once you just get on with it?
My closing metaphor for you is a story of a boy. This is not the one I was going to originally tell. It's one I was going to tell a few weeks ago. Once upon a time, there was a boy. He was very tall, and he was kind of an outsider, and he wore enormous plastic glasses. And this boy loved to play with the other children in his street and neighborhood. But they thought he was kind of weird because they played baseball and football, and they played soccer and basketball and volleyball, and even shot marbles. And they had balls of all different sizes and colors and shapes. And he had a ball of his own. He made it out of gaffer's tape or duct tape, a huge ball of silver tape. And it kept getting torn and broken, and he kept sticking more and more pieces on this ball of tape, until eventually it was bigger than he was. This ball of tape was 6 feet in diameter, and it was his best friend, and he was really happy with this ball of tape. And the other kids would be shooting marbles and playing baseball and football and soccer and volleyball, and they'd see him wandering down the street rolling this enormous ball of tape. And they go, oh no, here he comes again. And he remained an outcast because of this. But when he grew up, he became very technologically astute. And he decided to create something for computers, which were in their infancy at the time. And so, keeping his enormous pair of glasses, he decided to make an operating system. But the only model he had was his ball of gaffer tape. And so, he made an operating system that closely resembled an enormous ball of tape. And there'd be holes in it, and periodically, about every 10 minutes, it would crash and fall apart and enrage people. And so he found a way to send them a few fresh pieces of tape every week. And the operating system became an enormous ball of tape. And when it got so big he couldn't roll it around anymore, guess what he did? He created a brand new one out of a different kind of tape, Scotch tape, or masking tape, or surgical tape, until that became too big and torn, and he'd send more pieces to stick on the enormous ball of tape. But his friends, they got out of that altogether. They got rid of all the balls they played with, and they got something that looked like a ball, but it wasn't. It was an apple.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to podcast session number 43 of Brain Software with Dr. Mike Mandel. We hope you've enjoyed it. We want to remind you to head on over to our recently launched, redesigned MikeMandelHypnosis.com website. Tons of free stuff for you. You're going to love it. And you can also head on over to iTunes because we would love for you to leave a review. Write a review for our podcast and rate it 5 stars if you think we deserve it, because we want to get this podcast out to the world and have everybody living a glanative and full and enjoyable life. That's it. We will see you again.
Thanks
on
again.
Podcast number 44 coming up next.
Now imagine that you see a wheel up in the sky. It is an incongruous situation, but nevertheless imagine you see some sort of a wheel directly above you against the background of the night sky. You may see a wagon wheel, or it might be a spinning wheel, or it could be a bicycle wheel, or perhaps even a gambling wheel. And whatever kind of wheel occurs to you, whatever kind of wheel you see in your mind, look at it, watch it, and as you do, you'll notice it gradually starts to recede, gradually starts to go up into the sky, and as it does so, it may remain in a stationary position, or it may be revolving slowly or rapidly. And whatever the hypnotic wheel does in your mind, let it do. Don't try to force it to do anything in any way. Oh, this book's been a pain.
Somebody actually wrote that crap?
Cut!